Hello guys, and welcome back to my third video on the IELTS reading test. I'm Claudia from claudiamyenglishteacher.com, and in this video today I'm going to go through the list of headings, its strategies, its techniques, and the best way to approach it. Stay with me. Okay, so here you've got reading section 3, and you can see the text on the left and the list of headings on the right. Now the text is actually longer, but I've just copied and pasted paragraph A and B for the moment, and I will explain why. Now the main work area in the list of headings, just like in any other part of the listening test, is the question area. So it's the right area here that's got the list of headings. However, what I normally advise my students is to read the title of the article before they start working on the list of headings. Just to get an idea of what the text is going to be about. So for example, if we read the title here, it says Air Traffic Control in the USA. So we already know what the article is going to be about. But if we read paragraph A, we're going to learn that there was an accident in 1956 over the Grand Canyon. This accident resulted in the establishment of the FAA, which is an acronym that's going to show up quite a few times in the article. And then we've got the words aircraft in the skies, we've got the words air traffic control, safety of flight in the United States. So we're definitely going to know that this whole article is going to be about air traffic control, the consequences, how it was established, and what happened and what will happen. Here you've got questions 14 to 19 that correspond to the different paragraphs from A to G. As we saw before, in a list of headings exercise, the text is always divided into paragraphs because obviously you need to match those headings to the different paragraphs. Now, as you can see here, you've got 7 paragraphs, but you've got 10 options, which means that 2 of those options are not needed. Now, you need to choose the correct headings for paragraphs A and C and G from the list below. Now, how do we do this? First of all, as I always say in my videos, in my listening and reading videos, you need to focus on the keywords. The keywords are those words that help you find or locate the answers in the reading text or in the listen if it's the listening test. Here on the left, I prepared a list for you. You can download this list in a PDF format from my website, claudiamyenglishteacher.com. I've also made a video on the keywords and how to find them in the questions and how to match the questions to the text. So let's just make a quick recap for those who've not seen my other videos. The keywords are made of adjectives, adverbs, modal verbs, negatives, numbers, dates, months or years, or names of people, names of places, or even verbs. Sometimes it could even be specific nouns or anything that you think stands out in that statement or list of headings in this case. Now, if we go and look at the list of headings in this case, we can see that most options have 3 words, apart from option number 2 that has 4, option number 8 that has 4, and option number 10 that has 4. Now, we can also see that we've got 2 acronyms, FAA and ATC, the meaning of which is found in the text. And if you read them more than once, you will notice that a lot of them start with a verb. So we've got disobeying, so I'm just going to highlight that. We've got setting, which I highlight as well. I've got controlling. I've got defining. Can you see we've got all gerunds here? We've got setting again, and then we've got taking off, which is another gerund. So I'm just going to highlight them because it's something that's recurring. It's something that you can find in more than one option. And then I just go and see what else I can underline here. Now, Here I've got disobeying the FAA regulations, so obviously I'm going to underline the acronym because it's the most important thing. In number 2, I've got aviation disaster prompt action. I would probably underline, sorry, let me just remove this. I would probably underline aviation disaster because it's quite particular. So there's probably a paragraph about a disaster that happened in the past, and in fact we just read the first paragraph that corresponded to an aviation disaster. Then we've got number 3, 2 coincidental developments. We've got a number 2, so I would definitely underline it. And we've got coincidental, which is an adjective, so I would definitely underline that as well. Then I've got number 4, setting altitude zones. Now there's no adjective there, but I would underline altitude zones because the word stands out. Number 5, I've got oversimplified view. That is, oversimplified is an adjective, so I'm underlining it. Number 6, we've already highlighted controlling. I would probably just underline the other 2 words. Number 7, define an airspace categories. I would underline airspace, which is describing the categories. In number 8, I would probably underline the weather conditions or just weather. Number 9 has got an adverb safely, which I will underline. And then you've got number 10, which is already given for you. As you can see, it matches paragraph B. So you can take that one out. Now, another way and another suggestion for you is that when you try and match the list of headings to the different paragraphs in the text, you don't just go and find the one that matches, but you read them all every single time and you go by exclusion. So you say number 1, no, it can't be. Number 2, maybe. Number 3, no, it can't be. In that way, your mind gets used to all the options. And by the time you get to, let's say, paragraph D here, which is question number 16, you kind of know and you kind of become familiar with all the options, which will help you choosing which one's the right one. So we're back to the text, and we've got the reading text on the left and the list of headings on the right. Now, this is where the reading starts, but you need to use a technique which is very, very useful in IELTS reading, and that technique is skimming and scanning. Now, if you don't know what this means, skimming means reading quickly without reading every word, so that you get an overall impression of a text or parts of the text. So in this case, the paragraph. Whereas scanning means quickly searching a passage for a particular word or term. So let's say if we have underlined a keyword here, or any of these that we've underlined or highlighted, with the scanning technique, you are quickly searching for that keyword in the passage. Now, if we read paragraph A, we read it before at the beginning of this video, and we read that there was an accident over the Grand Canyon in 1956, and because of this accident, the FAA was established. Why was it established? To regulate the operation of aircraft in the US skies, okay, which were becoming quite congested. Okay, and this has greatly increased the safety of flights in the United States even now. Now, if we go and look at the list of headings and we go by exclusion, which is a technique that I really, really recommend, meaning read all of them and then you just say which one would fit and which one would not fit. So if we look at option number 1, we've got disobeying FAA regulations. No, there's nothing about that. Option 2 is Aviation disaster prompt action. Now we did see the paragraph talking about the disaster, but instead of saying disaster, they're saying accident. We did see the idea of prompting, which is given by this resulted in. So more than likely, number 2 is the right answer, but just in case, let's go and read the other options. So number 3, we've got 2 coincidental developments. There's no talk of that. Number 4, it's set in altitude zones. No mention of altitude. Number 5, it's oversimplified view. There's no mention of that. Controlling pilots' licenses. No, we have no mention of pilots here. 7, defining airspace categories. We don't have any mention of airspace. 8, setting rules to weather condition. Again, no weather mentioned here. Taking off safely. There is kind of an idea of traveling safely or the safety of flights, which is there, but it's not the main idea of that paragraph. So number 2 would be the right answer, and we're going to highlight it. Now, don't just give for granted that what you've chosen is the right one, because in the exam you might have made a mistake and you might want to go back and change it. But if you always read all the options, you will become familiar with them. Before we move on to paragraph C, let's just look at why paragraph B matches heading number 10, which says first steps towards ATC. Now, if I say first steps towards, that means that I'm going to talk about the past and I'm going to talk about a progression in time. And in fact, paragraph B talks about as early as the 1920s, and then it carries on and moves on to the 1930s. And it tells you the progress that there was between these years, and also it tells you the first region to have something approximating today's ATC was New York City. Okay, so we can clearly see this progression in time, which means first steps towards ATC. Now let's carry on and let's move on to option C. And this time I would like you to spend about 30 seconds reading paragraph C, and then we'll go and have a look at the options. Okay, that's 30 seconds. Remember that when you skim and scan, you are reading quickly. So 30 seconds or 45 seconds should be enough. Now, what do we have in C? We're talking about the 1940s, so we're still in the past. And then it's telling you that ATC centres took advantage of 2 things that were in use during the Second World War. And what are these 2 things? They are radar, newly developed radar, and the second thing is improved radio communication. And then it says, but the system remained rudimentary, meaning the system remained a bit old. And then they're saying only after the creation of FAA, full-scale regulation of Americans' airspace took place. But this took place, so this establishment of a full-scale regulation of America's airspace was fortuitous. Now that is an important word, and that means if something is fortuitous means that there's no intention about it. It just means that something is happening by chance rather than intention, and there's no plan whatsoever. And why was it unintentional? Because it tells you here, the advent of the jet engine suddenly resulted in a large number of very fast planes. So we've got two events that happened unintentionally, and they were fortuitous. Now, let's go and look at the options at the list of headings. And again, let's go by exclusion. So we've got disobeying FAA regulations, no. Number 2, aviation disaster, no, it's not about disaster. 3, 2 coincidental developments. Now, we did read about 2 developments, and coincidental means that it's not planned. So coincidental is actually a synonym of fortuitous. Just to double check, let's go and look at the other ones. Setting, altitude zones, no. Oversimplified new, no. Controlling pilot licenses. Well, the paragraph mentions pilots, but there's nothing about licenses. Defining airspace. Categories, no. Setting rules to weather conditions, no mention of weather conditions. And taking off safely. Well, it talks about safety, like operating safely in the air, but the whole paragraph is not about taking off safely. Okay, so the whole paragraph is more about the developments of 2 things. Okay, so the right answer for paragraph C is heading number 3. And we'll just go and underline it and highlight it. Okay, now if, let's say, you didn't know the word fortuitous, would that be a problem? It would partly be a problem, but you still have the 2 developments that you can clearly see, and it's basically these 2. So you could still be lucky enough to guess or to realize that number 3 is the right paragraph for C. If we move on to paragraph D, again, spend your 30-45 seconds to skim and scan the paragraph. And the main idea here is that people just thought that ATC was made of controllers sitting in front of their radar screens in airports in the United States, and basically had an easy job. But this is a very incomplete part of the picture. So here you've got the contrast to that opinion, to what people were thinking. And then it says the FAA realized that the airspace over the United States would at any time have many different kinds of planes, and then they would fly to different destinations in different weather conditions, and so there was some sort of structure that was needed. Okay, so if we go and look at the list of headings, we don't have any idea of disobeying, we don't have any idea of altitude zones. An oversimplified view, well, maybe, because that means that what people were thinking, and that's the fact that ATC was made of controllers who just sat down in front of their computers, is actually a very incomplete part of the picture. Meaning, so here, very incomplete part of the picture, meaning that the view they had was a bit too simple or oversimplified. And let's look at controlling pilot's license. Absolutely not. Defining airspace categories. There's no categories here. Setting rules to weather conditions. Well, they do mention the weather conditions here, but it's got nothing to do with the setting rules to weather conditions. And then there's no mention of taking off safely. So the right answer for paragraph D is number 5. And we're just going to highlight it at number 5. Now, if we look at paragraph E very quickly and we skim and scan it, we can see that we've got numbers. As I said before, numbers are always a keyword. So let's just go and underline that. And then we've got more numbers, and then we've got more numbers. Now, what type of numbers are there? They're expressing the altitude, because you've got from 365 meters above the ground and higher. And then you've got 215 meters above the ground. And then again, you've got below 365 meters. So here we're talking about altitudes and how high planes could fly or not. So I can see straight away that is related to that, setting altitude zones. Okay, so the setting is given by the following elements were put into effect. Okay, if you set something, you put something into effect. If you skim and scan paragraph F, you will realize that it's talking about the different types of weather conditions, and in fact it's saying in good meteorological conditions, meaning in good weather, flying would be permitted under visual flight rules. So that's a set of rules. But then it says poor visibility necessitated a set of instrumental flight rules. So that means another type of rules. And then it says under which the pilot relied on altitude and navigational information. So we can clearly see that the main thing about this paragraph is the fact that we've got the weather conditions, which we underline as a keyword here in heading number 8. And then we've got the set of rules, which are the visual flight rules and the instrumental flight rules. And the whole paragraph talks about those two and the different weather conditions. So paragraph F matches heading number 8. Okay, again, just go and read through all the other options just to see that you're not making mistakes. And last but not least, we've got paragraph G, which is quite long, but straight away I can see that I've got controlled airspace, uncontrolled airspace. This is when I skim and scan, obviously. You've got class F, so I'm going to put that in bold. We've got class E, and then we've got class A, and then we've got, again, the classes mentioned, and again here. And then if we carry on, even if I'm not reading it, but I'm just scanning it, I can see that we've got different classes here. And what are these classes? They are simply categories. So we've got classes D, C, and B. So obviously in this paragraph, what they're talking about is different categories. Categories for what? Obviously for airspace. And it says here controlled airspace is divided into seven different types. Okay, the different types are the categories. So paragraph G matches heading number 7. Okay, now we did this very quickly, but that's how you need to do it. It's just about scanning, looking for the keywords, looking for the general idea of the paragraph, because many times what you will have in a paragraph is words that belong to different headings, not just to one. But the thing is that that paragraph might talk about one heading and might just mention something about the other heading. But remember, the list of headings are those headings that match to the whole meaning of the paragraph, not just of some words. So it's as if you're summarizing the paragraph and finding a heading that would match that summary. Thank you for watching this video. If you need more advice on the other parts of the reading paper or any IELTS paper, please watch my other videos, which you can find here below in the descriptions or on my website, claudiamyenglishteacher.com. If you need help with the IELTS in general, visit my website to see the courses I'm offering at the moment and just drop me an email explaining what you need. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook for mini weekly IELTS lessons. Thank you so much.